What is poppin' YouTube? Giving you my must start, must sit rankings in the tier format so that you guys know who to start and who to sit in week 12 as we help you go towards this championship and for this playoff push. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. In my S tier, we have Christian McCaffrey. No reason not to have Christian McCaffrey as they're going up against Seattle. Yes, Seattle. We don't know what's happening with Geno Smith. DK Metcalf is also currently listed as questionable. This could be a get up early game for the 49ers, which is going to be CMC in the second half. So I definitely like CMC. He's in our S tier. No reason not to have him here in our S tier. Then we move on to our A tier. We got a bunch of guys in our A tier. We got Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Travis Etienne, Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. When we started off with Jonathan Taylor here, leading off our S tier, Jonathan Taylor is going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like Jonathan Taylor this week. I think Jonathan Taylor has shown that he's healthy. He's getting back to play. Yes, maybe putting Jonathan Taylor above Austin Eckler, that might be bold. But Austin Eckler is going up against Baltimore. Don't necessarily love this matchup for the Chargers offense overall because let's be honest, it's the Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen show, nothing else. But I do have Austin Eckler here as my RB3. RB4, we do have Travis Etienne. And Travis Etienne been coming on strong. Houston, it's honestly a great matchup for Travis Etienne. Maybe I should have put Travis Etienne higher, but really, if you have any of these guys, you know that you're starting them. But Travis Etienne versus Houston, it really is an A+ matchup. So maybe I should have considered putting Travis Etienne higher. For me, I still, in my gut, want Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler here above Travis Etienne. Then we move on to Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara with the Michael Thomas news. Alvin Kamara instantly gets boosted up versus Atlanta. I like Alvin Kamara target share, especially for PPR. Love it here. I have him as my RB5. Then we move on to Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs has been an absolute tear versus Green Bay, playing on Thanksgiving. You're going to start Jahmyr Gibbs if you have him. I mean, RB2, flex spot, maybe RB1, but I think he's going to finish as an RB1. He's been on an absolute tear. Electric upside with the ball in his hands. Now, while we're here talking about it, I still have David Montgomery still in this A tier. I know. I think both these guys can eat. I think it's kind of crazy. Both these guys, I think, can get somewhere between 15 to 25 fantasy points a game, each of them, which is insane that this Lions offense can produce that because David Montgomery's getting the touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs is getting the long plays. I don't know how it's going to work. It's like the more prime version of DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams from last year. So we absolutely love it. But then talking about DeAndre Swift, we have DeAndre Swift here in our A tier. And DeAndre Swift going up against the Bills, maybe it's not the best matchup for DeAndre Swift, but the thing that we know with this Philadelphia Eagles team is they can still run the ball on pretty much anybody. The tush push, but even more with DeAndre Swift versus Buffalo, you're starting them. We haven't seen that elite level high-end upside that we saw, of course, in week 2, but still very solid RB1 DeAndre Swift here in our A tier. Moving on to our B tier, we got Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Bijan Robinson. Starting it off with Josh Jacobs. Yes, a lot of you have been upset with how I've been ranking Josh Jacobs week after week after week. This week going up against Kansas City, they're going to have to run the ball. And yes, Kansas City has been pretty good against the run with this team. Aiden McConnell, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. That's who this team is relying on to score the football. So Josh Jacobs is going to get ample opportunities in this offense, have him leading off this tier. Move on to our next guy, which is going to be Breece Hall versus Miami. With the backup quarterback starting, a lot of people are probably going to be like, why are you having Breece Hall so high? For me, it really comes down to the fact when you have a backup quarterback, you're going to hand the ball off to your stud running back to get things going. Yes, Miami, they're a good team, but I think more so they're going to force some interceptions. And yes, maybe the Jets have to get down and have to throw the ball late in the game, but I still like Breece Hall, like the overall upside that he possesses this week over some of the other guys in this tier. Like I still like Breece Hall more than Tony Pollard, but Tony Pollard's been getting it going. Had a nice day last week. Tony Pollard versus Washington, like we've been saying all season, his metrics in regard to his red zone, goal line touches, his overall snap share, a lot of it's been healthy. It just hasn't been producing base football points, but this Dallas Cowboys offense is absolutely getting it going. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott are getting going. So once those two guys get going, this passing deck gets going, boom, lanes start to open up for Tony Pollard that he hasn't seen. So we like Tony Pollard here. Then moving on to Derrick Henry versus Carolina. Derrick Henry makes it as an RB1, so he's definitely going to be a must start for you. 13.6 fantasy points is what he's projected currently in PPR. But my thing is this, going up against the Carolina Panthers, absolutely fire matchup for Derrick Henry. We've seen how the Carolina Panthers have struggled to score the ball, but they've also struggled to stop opponents from scoring the ball. So I think this is a great game for Derrick Henry. Get back on track game for my man Derrick Henry. I think this is continuing to be the Derrick Henry as we head into the playoff push of his amazing schedule. We move on to our next player in this tier is going to be Rachaad White. Rachaad White versus Indianapolis Colts. Rachaad White has been checked down king as of late. That's how he's getting all of his PPR points. He's been an absolute monster. Maybe Rachaad White should go ahead of Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry. I just don't like this matchup as much for Rachaad White versus Indy, but still, I still think Rachaad White's going to have a great day. You're going to be starting him. Isaiah Pacheco is up next to bat in our tier rankings versus the Raiders. I think the Chiefs get up early, and that just means a second half of the Isaiah Pacheco show. So I like Isaiah Pacheco here. And the rounding out our B tier is going to be Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson, as we continue on, as we've seen this elite level upside for Jahmyr Gibbs start to emerge, I think the same thing's going to happen with Bijan. The only issue, he's going up against against New Orleans, who is a little bit harder of a defense to run against, but still, even with the matchup not being great, I still think the touches that Bijan Robinson is going to get as we head into the fantasy football playoffs is enough for us to continue putting Bijan Robinson this high. I wouldn't be surprised if next week we have Bijan Robinson leading off our B tier after what he does this week. Moving on to our C tier, we got Kyren Williams, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, Brian Robinson, Joe Mixon, James Conner, and Jerome Ford. Starting things off with Kyren Williams, let's be clear with Kyren Williams. They dropped Darrell Henderson, so that makes us super excited about Kyren Williams this week, and there's a lot to be said. Kyren Williams was like a top 8 running back before he got injured. With Matthew Stafford, we don't know what's happening with Cooper Kupp, but even still, Kyren Williams, if Cooper Kupp's not playing, I think that even benefits Kyren Williams even more. So I like Kyren Williams here in my C tier. Moving on to Raheem Mostert. Is Devon going to play this week? That is the real question with a lot of people against the Jets. They're going to get up early on the Jets. I mean, the Jets defense is good. Don't get me wrong. The defensive line, cornerbacks, but when your offense literally cannot score, it puts the defense in such a hard spot. So I like Raheem Mostert. I think they're definitely going to be running the ball in the second half. So have Raheem Mostert here. Then we move on to Javonte Williams. Javonte, this Denver Broncos offense has really started to get things going, started to get things cooking. Versus Cleveland, that would be the worry that I have with Javonte. Maybe why I don't have Javonte leading off this C tier, because the Cleveland Browns defensive line with Myles Garrett. I like Cortland Sutton. I like Russ Wilson. I just hope Javonte can maybe get a touchdown. I think that might save his day. Otherwise, I just don't like the upside here for Javonte, but I still have him here because we know the touches, the snap share that he's been getting has been really good. We move on to our next player, and that's Brian Robinson. Shout out to Brian Robinson for just doing what he does. He gets touchdowns. That's what Brian Robinson has been doing. Going up against the Dallas defense, a really bad matchup here for the Commanders, as the Dallas Cowboys offense has just been absolutely insane. I am a little bit worried about Brian Robinson, but like we said with this offense, like Brian Robinson has probably been the most consistent weapon. I mean, Sam Howell's been throwing for a ton of yards, but Brian Robinson's getting a ton of touchdowns, so I like that. Then we can move on to Joe Mixon, playing with Jake Browning as the backup quarterback. This is more of a volume play versus Pittsburgh. I feel like they're going to be handing him the ball because they can't throw the ball. And while that might work for a volume play, Joe Mixon there's nothing that screams, oh, he's going to be able to do a ton with more touches. That's not going to be the thing, especially if they're not scoring the ball. So I have Joe Mixon here just because of the touch share. Maybe I should have put him lower, but I really couldn't do it just based on some of the other running backs that we're talking about next. We move on to James Conner. We know the elite level touches that he will eventually get going up against the Rams. We haven't necessarily seen that yet, but as he's coming off of the IR, the last 2 weeks, kind of getting back in football shape, I'm expecting James Conner to take over more and more of this backfield as the season goes on. Then we move to Jerome Ford versus the Denver Broncos. Maybe they get up early, but I'm still worried about DTR and this offense with Jerome Ford. I mean, Jerome Ford is explosive when he gets the ball, so that's why we have him here under C tier, but still, I've lowered expectations on this whole Cleveland Browns offense overall. Then we move on to our D tier. We got Zach Charbonnet, Gus Edwards, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, AJ Dillon, James Cook, Alexander Madison. Zach Charbonnet taking over the backfield. I know it's a terrible matchup versus the 49ers, but even still, we still know that Zach Charbonnet is second round running back and he runs hard. And that's the two things that we love to see out of a rookie running back. So yes, is this going to be a really hard matchup for the Seahawks, especially if TK Metcalf and Geno Smith aren't able to go? Yes. I still like Zach Charbonnet here, especially if you picked him off waivers. Gus Edwards is our next guy for the Baltimore Ravens. Gus Edwards has also been a touchdown machine going up against the Chargers. We don't necessarily love the matchup. I mean, the Chargers defense hasn't been great, but I just want to see Gus Edwards get it going again. Could Gus Edwards start to put up that same type of elite level touchdown production we've been seeing each and every week? I think potentially, I have him, like I said, as an RB2 here, but you might be starting Gus Edwards depending on the depth on your team. We move to Ramondre Stevenson, and Ramondre Stevenson has been a disappointing running back all season, but I think this week he might get things going up against this Giants defense, which has been lackluster to say the least. I know the Giants had a good game last week with DeVito, Saquon, even Thibodeau really had a good day, but I like this matchup for Ramondre Stevenson here in our D tier. Moving on to Jalen Warren, who showed he is the back to own in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Najee Harris, you are cooked. Jalen Warren, you are in versus Cincinnati. I think the Steelers, as much as this offense stinks with Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, I think they're going to get up on the Bengals just because the Bengals won't be able to score. It's probably going to be a super low scoring game, but Jalen Warren, I think, ends up having some decent fantasy football value in this day. So I have him here in our D tier. Moving on to our next guy is going to be AJ Dillon. With Aaron Jones out, it's going to be the AJ Dillon show. And now with AJ Dillon going up against Detroit, it's going to be your Thursday, watching it as you're eating your turkey leg. AJ Dillon, is he going to be a man? Is he going to show up like Derrick Henry? I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said that when AJ Dillon has taken over a majority of the touches, he's kind of been lackluster to say the least. But I do like AJ Dillon here in my D tier. Then rounding out our two players will be James Cook and Alexander Madison. Alexander Madison has been pure volume this season, going up against the Bears for the Vikings. We like this matchup for Alexander Madison, so he's potentially a flex play for you and or RB2 if you're super, super desperate at running back. And then James Cook. We'll throw James Cook in here versus Philadelphia. We don't love it. We don't love how these running backs have been doing in this offense, but still having some pretty good metrics this year on like explosive run rate and things along that. He just hasn't been getting the touches as of late. So we have him projected somewhere around 10 fantasy points versus the Eagles. That is how my running back tier list is looking. So let me know what start sit questions you have down below. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate it for all the support. I'm so thankful for all of you guys. And check out these two videos if you haven't already. We'll be putting out another video on Friday, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.